Hey Ryan, we're in your Tesla Model 3.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful day, enjoying the last days of summer, the last days of 80 degrees here in Colorado.
Yes, nice, sunny, pre-fall-ish temperatures. Technically it's fall, but still feels like summer. Anyhow, we just, I think, gained some charge on that as we were going down that hill, because electric cars have this ability, Ryan, right, to regen or regenerate, recuperative forces, whatever you want to call it. They basically can gain energy by slowing down through control of their motors. And this is a really cool function. Your Tesla has it. And many EVs do this to such an effect that they have what's called one-pedal driving. So Ryan, I don't think there's anyone behind us. If it's safe, can you show us what happens if you lift your foot off the accelerator?
Of course, I'm actually going downhill right now, and I'm just going to take my foot off the accelerator pedal, and we're decelerating, and it's bringing me all the way down to a stop.
We just went from like 15 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour. And now our parking brake is held. So we're actually stopped here in the Tesla. To go again, you need to press the accelerator. So really cool. For those of you used to driving automatic gas cars in particular, you have this effect called creep, right? Where the car rolls forward when you lift off the accelerator. It's always kind of moving. You have to touch the brakes to come to a stop. That's not the case in your Tesla, Ryan.
That's right, and to me, I think it's a really great feature. It's a really nice thing to have, and it makes it a lot easier just to use the vehicle, drive around, and maximize basically battery efficiency by putting as much energy back into the pack as possible.
Absolutely. Now, not every EV offers one pedal, and it's actually contested among automakers and among people's preferences if one pedal is actually the right solution for driving. Ryan, you and I think we both tend to like one pedal, but some people may want that coasting effect. They may think, or they may, suspect with their driving style, it's more efficient or just more predictable. It's what they want to get used to more. So, of course, one pedal, it's not the solution that every car maker has chosen for the electric car. Some electric cars go somewhere in between, and they let you kind of adjust whether you want it on or off at all. In this Tesla, for instance, Ryan, you have to use one pedal, though I believe you could turn on a creep mode where you wouldn't quite come to a full stop when you lift your foot off, right?
That's correct, and I believe there is also a reduced one-pedal driving mode, but there is always a pretty similar to one-pedal driving, or pretty close to it.
Yes, it's fairly aggressive in that effect of you lifting off the accelerator and automatically slowing down. Many EVs actually do regen still when you push the brake pedal, so it's not like one pedal is the only way to actually regeneratively recuperate energy, but it's one possible way. The other way is through that brake blending. But we've introduced a lot of terms: brake blending, regen, one pedal, EVs that have it, EVs that don't. If you're shopping for one and you're curious about which have it, well, here's the video for you. We're going to chapterize it. We're going to put in images of all the cars we're talking about and talk about the most popular models and their status as to which ones have a one pedal mode and which ones don't. All right, Ryan, so just first kind of going down this list alphabetically, sort of, I've loosely organized it among brands and models, but let's talk about Audi, because Audi sells many EVs like the Q4 e-tron, the e-tron, the e-tron GT, all of that rather confusingly named. But their luxury EVs have adjustable regen, so you can adjust how strongly they slow down when you lift off the accelerator, and they brake blend, meaning they will use regenerative braking when you press the brake pedal for the first part of it, then eventually using the friction brakes when they need to slow down extra hard. But they don't offer one pedal.
That's correct, and credit where credit's due. I think Audi does a great job with their brake blending. However, one pedal driving is a really nice feature to have, and it's something that I certainly miss when I'm driving those vehicles.
Yeah, and it's, I think, disappointing because in many ways these vehicles are so smart. We'll talk about another brand that does something similar, but like they will, for instance, adjust, if you have the dynamic setting on, their recuperation and slowing down regen effect with traffic using the adaptive cruise control system. And like they'll do all that, but they won't let you come to a complete stop. And the Germans have their reasoning for this. Like Audi engineers have said, basically, we don't believe one pedal is actually the most efficient way. They want you to cruise and coast. And it's true, Ryan, that cruising and coasting when possible and when you want to maintain speed is still the most efficient way to drive. When you're slowing down and accelerating, inevitably you're always losing some energy in that process.
That's right. Any sort of acceleration or deceleration has some sort of energy losses associated with it. So coasting is the most efficient way to do it. With that being said, I'll take the minor efficiency penalty for the livability and nice feature of being able to drive just using the accelerator pedal.
Yeah, the proof's in the pudding. Audi's EVs are not particularly efficient. I don't think it's because of the regen or one pedal, but it's not as if they have a huge leg to stand on in the efficiency arena. So I think it's interesting that that's the line they've drawn. BMW on their EVs, Ryan, the i4, i7, iX, their modern EVs, also the i3, no longer in sale. But their EVs have all had some kind of one pedal mode. They let you adjust this though. There's 3 regen modes and the adaptive one we mentioned at Audi with cruise control. But the BMWs, unlike the Audis, will actually let you come to a complete stop.
That's a really nice feature. I love seeing it.
Yeah, and I think honestly that's the way it should be done. Let people adjust it. BMW will let you go in more of that coasting mode if you want, because if you're maintaining speed on the highway, it is more efficient, but you don't have to. And I should mention, cars with one pedal, like always, all the time, like yours, Ryan, you can coast in a Tesla. I mean, you could put it in neutral, but also when you're in drive, if you have the right balance and the right modulation of the accelerator, you're not always necessarily slowing down or accelerating. You could just be in a happy balance where you're coasting.
That's right. It definitely takes some concentration and some practice, but even with strong one-pedal driving, you're able to modulate it such that you are essentially coasting.
Yes. And then this isn't, rolling out in mass quantities yet, but Fisker, new automaker, right? The Fisker Ocean coming out. On the Fisker Ocean, I believe there's no one-pedal mode. There is, of course, regen and recuperative braking. When you press the brake pedal, it blends in regen. Basically, every EV besides Tesla does some form of this. And the Fisker will auto hold you in a stop, like many people are used to already in gas cars, where you press the brake pedal with some force at a stop and it won't go until you go again. But unfortunately, it doesn't do one pedal.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see exactly how they do it, but a little disappointing that they're not going to do the full one pedal.
Yeah, and this is based off early experience. Kyle has driven a Fisker, but if those of you watching have Fiskers and there's some setting that we're missing and there actually is one pedal possible, please do let us know. Please do correct us in that video. Ryan, you and I have had the opportunity to drive many electric cars, many of the ones we're talking about in this list, not all of them. So if we get anything wrong, please let us know. But this is to the best of our knowledge. Then we've got Ford. Ford, very relevant, I think, right? F-150 Lightning, the Mustang Mach-E. They make great EVs, and their EVs have one pedal.
Yes. And additionally, in their little driver infotainment, when you're regenerative braking, it'll give you feedback as to how efficient you're being, which is a nice little game that you can play and make sure that you're maximizing efficiency.
Yes, many EVs have some kind of visualization. We'll try to show B-roll on screen of that. Like Tesla will show a bar basically that's either green or it's white, depending on what you're braking, accelerating, regenerative, charging your battery by slowing down. They try to show you some status, and Ford gamifying it that way I think is really cool. It's nice to let the driver know how they're being efficient. I should also mention Ford lets you turn it off. If you don't like one pedal, you can turn it off.
I think that's the way that you should do it.
Yep. And then we've got GM, General Motors, right, who of course owns a stable of brands, Hummer, Chevy, Cadillac. So their earliest EVs, like let's think the Bolt, which is still for sale, don't necessarily do one pedal, but they can get kind of close.
That's right. The first generation Bolt had regenerative brakes and actually pretty strong ones, and they'd bring you almost all the way down to a stop, but you would keep rolling at about 3 or so miles an hour.
Yes, so it still had that kind of creep function. And I believe you could put them in an L mode because there's park, reverse, neutral drive, and then they had L to simulate sort of low gear. Some EVs do something similar, but they call this a B mode. But you put it into B or L, and that's like a low range basically, where it makes it even stronger.
That's right, yes.
And they had a paddle on the steering wheel. I think General Motors vehicles still do this, where that paddle will let you make it even more stronger.
The paddle is essentially giving you the maximum amount of regenerative brakes that you can. It's a really great feature, and it's something that I really miss having.
Yeah, the Cadillac Lyriq has the paddle feature and also the one pedal mode, and the upcoming EVs I predict be built on Ultium. So EVs like the Chevy Equinox, the Blazer, all of these, the Silverado, will have one pedal. We're expecting, I think the Hummer does as well. So the Bolt, they kind of were experimenting. They didn't quite give you the full one pedal, but they did do a lot of cool tricks like giving you B mode and giving you the paddle. Then we've got Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis. I'll just call them Hyundai Motor Group. So we're talking about the Ioniq 5 with Hyundai, the Kia EV6, the Genesis GV60, and the Genesis G80 and G70 electrified. These EVs all have a one pedal mode, but you have to activate it. It's called the I pedal.
That's right, and it's a pretty interesting implementation.
Yes, so there's 4 levels of recuperation and sensitivity, where like at its strongest setting, it's more sensitive. So level 3, I think, is like the most coasting. They have level 2, level 1, level 0 that progressively have less coasting and more of that regen slowing effect. Then below level 0, you have the I pedal, and the I pedal is where you actually get a one pedal mode that'll bring you to a stop. And it's called the I pedal because it gets a shorthand for intelligent. It'll actually stop you in place, which is cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Unfortunately, every time you start them, they don't remember your state, or at least they won't remember the I pedal. Like if you're in level 0 or level 1 and you have, one of the more sensitive region modes, it'll remember that. It just won't remember that you had the I pedal on. You have to always remind it, and sometimes it doesn't let you use the I pedal. And so I don't know. It's kind of a half-hearted approach. I'm glad they give you the customizability. I wish for those of us EV users used to vehicles like Tesla and Polestar and Rivian who do one pedal all the time, that Hyundai and Kia and Genesis would give some concession, but they really don't there, and that's unfortunate.
Right.
Then we've got the Jaguar I-Pace, still for sale, one of the older EVs. Can't say I recommend you buy one new now, but in case you did want to, yes, there is a high regen mode in that vehicle that basically functions as a one-pedal drive mode. Then we've got the Lucid. So Lucid currently just sells the Air. They have the upcoming Gravity SUV, and Lucid does do one pedal all the time.
It's a great feature.
Yep. So if you're driving a Lucid Air, you can get used to it. Now, there are modes. I think there's like 2 basically settings of sensitivity to it, but you're always going to effectively have some kind of one pedal. Like a Tesla, though, you could turn on a creep if you wanted to, and that would negate the one pedal effect, where when you're slow, and off, not pressing any pedal, you are rolling forward gradually. You can turn that on if you like. Then we've got Mercedes, and Mercedes is the most complicated brand here, because if you're looking at the EQ B or the EQC, which are their lower end electric models, those have adaptive levels of regenerative braking, but they don't actually let you go to a one pedal mode that would bring you to a stop.
It's an interesting shortcoming, especially considering some of their offerings at higher price points.
Yes, the EQS and the EQE sedans and SUVs will actually, they have paddles on the steering wheel that let you adapt your setting and your sensitivity on the fly, and the strongest setting combined with turning creep off will effectively be a one pedal mode.
And again, which has been the theme, it's great to have that option, and the best way to do it is to have that option with the ability to turn it off.
Agreed. Then we get to Mini, who has the Cooper SE Electric currently, and more models to come, like the Countryman Electric and other ones like Kyle has looked at. Their Cooper SE is getting a refresh, but their current electric model that they sell as of us filming this video, and their future ones, do have, like BMW, because they're derived from BMW, they have different regen modes, the strongest one of them being a one pedal mode.
It's great to hear.
Nissan is very interesting. Like Mercedes, they have a different strategy that kind of reflects different stages of their electric strategy, because they had a very pioneering early vehicle called the Leaf that has an E-pedal, as they call it. It is effectively one pedal. It slows you down. It will even blend in friction brakes if the battery is like at a high state of charge and actually can't accept any more charge. And so it'll always have this slowing down behavior. Then you have the Nissan Ariya, which is their current modern crossover, and that has it has an E-pedal, but it's not E-pedal as we know it in the Leaf, because it doesn't actually bring you to a stop. It still creeps and rolls forward. So it's a little odd there.
It's interesting to hear that some of these manufacturers have different strategies for different vehicles.
It seems like, I guess they figured Leaf is kind of going to appeal to the nerds and to the EV people, whereas Ariya, they really want to make it as friendly as possible for customers coming from gas cars, which is fair enough, but like Nissan, give people the option, I think. It's kind of annoying to have that creep mode forced on and to not be able to come to a stop, because again, it's so convenient at EVs that do it, and disappointing that's not on the Ariya. Then I want to group the next brand, Polestar, together with Volvo. So the Scandinavian brands of sorts owned by Geely, a Chinese company, but those companies who make EVs like the Volvo XC40 Recharge, the upcoming Volvo EX30, EX90, the Polestar 2, the Polestar 3. All of these EVs have one pedal, and I think it's on by default, but you could turn it to a lower sensitivity if you want.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, and they let you turn creep on. It's very configurable. It's very nice. Then we get, Ryan, to Porsche. And Porsche, with their current electric model, the Taycan, upcoming, I think the Macan EV is coming next, but they don't let, because Porsche is related to Volkswagen and Audi ownership, they have a similar philosophy to Audi, where they think coasting is better, and also on a track, they don't want to have regen always happen when you lift off the accelerator. So they figured for their brand, their performance driving, all of this, and then efficiency, which they claim to care about, that you should not have one pedal. So they let you adjust recuperation. There's a stronger mode, but it won't come to a stop.
That's right. And even in the stronger regenerative mode, it's not that strong. It's quite interesting, and there is certainly truth to their strategy. Coasting is more efficient than accelerating and decelerating. However, I think it definitely misses the mark in that you're not even able to select those options. Furthermore, I kind of see what they're saying and how it's a little bit different with regenerative braking. However, regenerative braking is a really great feature. Even on a track vehicle, it gives you a lot of control of the vehicle, of body motion, of all that stuff. So
Tesla's proven this on their performance models. It actually can work quite well. Of course, it won't always behave predictably, but then, neither do physical brakes. Sometimes those heat up. And I get the argument, like, oh, depending on your state of charge and your battery, you can't reliably use regen. But like you were saying, Tesla has kind of shown that's possible. And that brings me, we'll get to Tesla soon, but brings me next down our list to Rivian, a brand that's a lot like Tesla as a startup. They force you to use one pedal. It's there. But there are kind of two strength levels of medium and high to the brake regen effect. So they let you configure, how sensitive it is, but it always will be using some sort of one pedal.
I would prefer it to be that way. It would be better if you're able to turn it off completely.
It would, but I also kind of get the argument they have in Tesla similarly too, of just, what, we're going to have all our drivers have a somewhat similar experience. They can configure within a range, but we're not going to give them the option beyond that. Would more customizability be better objectively? Maybe, but I can see where they're coming from as a brand of just saying, what, one pedal is our strategy, get used to it.
That's a great point. I totally agree.
Subaru has, interestingly, a one pedal mode with what they call the S pedal. So you could turn on, and their one EV for sale currently, the Subaru Solterra, use the S pedal, and it's a paddle on the steering wheel basically, but it lets you use a single pedal, basically the accelerator or the lack of it, and then you have that S pedal paddle, and you can slow down. So you don't have to touch the brake technically.
That's really nice.
It's nice, and it's weird because the platform shared car with it, the Toyota BZ4X, shares a lot with the Subaru Solterra, doesn't have one pedal. It has a regeneration boost mode, which Toyota calls single pedal, but it won't actually bring you to a stop. And this is the same too in the luxury version of that car, the Lexus RZ. Very strange.
Yes.
Then we get the Tesla, which is very important because Tesla, Ryan, like we said at the beginning of this video, does have one pedal. They kind of force you to always use it, so much to the extent that they actually don't brake blind. Like every other EV we've talked about does some form of, you press the brakes, regenerative braking happens first, and then they blend in the friction brakes at some point. This is tricky, and some brands do it better than others. It's hard to get that balance smooth. Tesla doesn't even try. Instead, they actually recently added a mode where when the battery is at certain colder temperatures or maybe really highly charged, and you wouldn't expect to get a full slowing effect from regen because it couldn't activate and couldn't work, they'll actually blend in the friction brakes when you lift off the accelerator if need be, if you turn that setting on. But they won't go the other way. It's really interesting.
Yes, exactly. And just to illustrate that point, when you press the brake pedal in a Tesla, it will always actuate the friction brakes and only actuate those. That's what it controls. It won't do anything with the regenerative braking.
Yes, and this is sort of an ideological / pragmatic concern of theirs where they think, right, the brake pedal should always feel consistent. The best way to make it feel consistent is to just always have it actually be a pad screeching against the rotor, which I think fair enough. I think that's a respectable approach, and it's cool that, at least their approach is unified. It's just interesting that they take such a different approach from everyone else in the industry on that.
Right, and I will say it's executed quite well. I think the brake pedal is very nice to use. It's predictable, and the times when I do have to use it, it's been great. Yeah,
but if you don't like one pedal, then I'm sorry, but Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, the startup brands we talked about, really seem to kind of force you to use it. It's just very interesting. Then we get into Volkswagen. Lastly, not least, Volkswagen is like Audi and Porsche. They don't let you do it. There's a B mode. that's possible. Like we mentioned, there's, EVs that have B or L mode that's more sensitive. So there's a B mode in Volkswagen products, but that won't bring the car to a full stop.
Yes.
So unfortunate for those of you considering Volkswagen ID4 and vehicles like that. No one pedal there. So Ryan, covered a lot of ground today. Hopefully those chapters were helpful if you looked at a specific EV or whatnot. But regenerative braking, recuperation, everyone agrees that's great. It's just when you apply it. Do you apply it when you lift off the accelerator? Do you apply it to the extent that you don't actually have to touch the brake most of the time? Is that even a good idea in the first place? Brands disagree. I think we do have to contend that there's this myth that regen either is the most efficient way to drive or it isn't, and it's actually the least efficient way. Neither of these are true. It just depends on your situation, what you want to do. When you want to slow down, if you can use recuperation, be it by touching the brake or in an EV with one pedal, just by lifting off the accelerator, yes, regen is an absolute win. If we're talking about slowing down, regenning for its own sake, and having to accelerate to speed again, then yes, a one pedal drive mode or using regen automatically can be less efficient than coasting. Nonetheless, coasting is possible with one pedal. It just requires a little more sensitivity on that throttle for the EVs that have it.
Right. And we've went through a lot of different vehicles and a lot of different names for one-pedal driving and types of one-pedal driving. But
yeah,
hopefully the chapters will help break it down and give you a good idea of each manufacturer and their strategy and what you can expect from each of their vehicles.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this one, Ryan. And if you have questions, comments, again, if we get anything wrong about a specific vehicle or brand, because we haven't driven all of these, please let us know. But thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.